This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I am joined once again by Wellness Riot's Jill Bucaro. How are you today, Jill?
I'm excellent. It's
Super.
most beautiful weather here.
No, we have Scottish weather here today, most definitely. Yes. Now, I guess related to the seasons, we are just coming into cold, flu, and dare I say, COVID season. And at this time of year, there's a lot of talk about how one can, I'm going to use this very carefully, boost one's immune system,
Yes.
mainly through diet and the like. Let's first talk a little bit about what the immune system is.
Yes. So I love the cold and flu season to be even back up a little bit further because yes, but it's also the candy, sweets, party, alcohol, season as well, right?
Yeah.
And less sunlight, less vitamin D. So it's like there's so many things that feed into that like cold and flu season where like really we have a lot of control of it, which is part of what we're going to talk about today. But yeah, so the immune system, it's big top of a conversation, usually at this time of year, like you said, but really even in the past, maybe like 3 years, constantly we're talking about like, what we can do to, improve our immune system. But basically our immune system is, an interactive network of organs and white blood cells and proteins that works to get rid of things, like bacteria, viruses, parasites, pathogens. It recognizes and neutralizes toxins and harmful substances in the environment, and then also fights against abnormal cells in our body.
Yes.
So it's, that's kind of the immune, system on a whole. And then there's kind of two different parts to the immune system, or two different types of immunity. So we have our innate immune system, which is what we're born with. So it's our rapid response system. First to respond when there's an invader. And it's things like our skin, our eyes, the mucous membranes in our lungs and our GI tract. So these are like those physical barriers to help protect our bodies. So that's the innate immune system. And then we have the adaptive immune system, which is what we've heard a lot about lately as well, which is our acquired immunity. So you develop this when your body is exposed to different pathogens. It makes antibodies that protect your body from that specific invader. So the adaptive immune system is that specific response, or that targeted response, whereas that innate immune system is kind of guarding against more general threats. So those are the, kind of different parts of the immune system.
So theoretically, that second immune system would be ever growing as one got older, because you would become more resistant to, well, you'd be more exposed to different types of pathogens and therefore become more immune to them.
Exactly, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And, regardless of the type of immune response or the immune system, like the immune system is responsible for differentiating between like the bad guys, right? And the ones that need to go, and the good guys, and the ones that should stay. And most of the time this works flawlessly. Our immune system is incredibly intelligent, but, it can be tricky, or there can be some issues when our immune system sees those good guys, or like, self or us, right, as the enemy. And that's where you get things like autoimmune conditions, like lupus and type 1 diabetes and rheumatoid arthritis, where your body, incorrectly is attacking your own, cells. And then, with regards to typically non-problematic foods or elements, are the allergic responses. So, shellfish, tree nuts, cat hair, like most of us aren't responsive to that, but there are some people that are very responsive to it. So it's like kind of an overactive immune response.
Now, on the front of magazine covers, as one is leaving the grocery store, it's always saying "boost your immune system," and that term "boost," I've always felt all of the science behind that to be somewhat nebulous, because boosting your immune system is not necessarily a good thing, right?
Right. It depends. So in the situations that I was just talking about, with those autoimmune or those high allergic reactions, you don't want to boost that immune response anymore. It's already on high alert. It's already overactive. So I like to say, modulate or balance your immune response. It's more representative of really what you want, because there are times you definitely want an immune response, but you don't want it all the time, all like in overdrive. So balancing it is like the right response at the right time.
So how would one go about supporting one's immune system through diet?
Yeah, so what's important to know too is that 70 maybe plus% of our immune system is in or around our gut. So when we talk about, like what we eat and what we drink and what we take in, it is a huge opportunity to really support our immune system. And it kind of makes sense because it's really the entrance to the outside world. We take in food and drink and it goes, into our body. So it makes sense that, in and around our gut would be these defense lines or would be our immune response, because who knows what we're taking in. Hopefully we're taking in stuff that's safe, but you never know. So that lining, having that immune response right at your gut makes a lot of sense. And so again, it's that ability that we're asking our immune system to have of differentiating between, okay, this we don't want, and this is food, right? And this is the good guy. So it's a really smart, system that, that's in our gut. So starting with that, things that you can do to support, your gut and therefore your immune system is, anything that will help support your microbiome, which is that, those bacteria in your gut. So fiber rich foods are great. Fermented foods are great. And really, as with most things, whole and unprocessed foods are going to be your best bets. But with specifics to your immune, vitamin C foods are great. Like we hear that, but it really is true. So citrus, bell pepper, green leafy vegetables, berries, cruciferous vegetables, those are incredibly awesome and, high in vitamin C. Vitamin D, we can get that from sunlight, but not always,
Yeah. Not
even in the summer, if you're at certain like latitudes and certain areas, you're not going to probably get enough to so that might be something you want to supplement. Wild caught salmon, mushrooms, dairy if you can tolerate it, fortified foods, so those are other ways to get vitamin D into your system. Zinc is another really popular one for immune support. So legumes, shellfish, seeds, nuts, dark chocolates. So those are some of the big guys, but also like foods high in antioxidants are great to support, the immune system. So we talked about these, I think, with, in a couple different times, but berries, dark chocolate, leafy greens, clove, pecans, beans, artichokes. Those are all high in antioxidants. A lot of spices are high in antioxidants.
red wine.
Yes, exactly. That makes it on the good and the bad list.
I have this discussion with my wife almost every week. So it's
it's like, we want to believe it, right? So badly. And there's probably some truth to that. But yeah. And healthy fats are another one that can really support healthy immune response. So like avocado, wild caught salmon, nuts and seeds, extra virgin olive oil. And one of my favorites is mushrooms. So specifically those medicinal mushrooms, like some of them you can eat, some of them are probably better in supplement form, but like chaga, reishi, turkey tail, shiitake, maitake, lion's manes, cordyceps, they've all been shown to have like immune balancing effects. As well as antioxidants, and those adaptogenic mushrooms, as well as like adaptogenic herbs, are those ones that are going to modulate and balance the immune system. So, they'll boost it if it needs to be boosted, but it also just kind of like bring it into balance if that's what it needs as well. So those are really great. Anytime you see adaptogenic, you can equate that with like balancing or modulating.
Here's a question for you. Vitamin A, it was my understanding that that helped with your skin and your mucous membranes and the like. Is that something that would help to support your immune system?
Yeah, vitamin A, vitamin E, even as well, are both really good. And those you are ideal to get. You can get them in supplements as well, or foods. Like our carrots, our bell peppers, our fish, our seeds. Those healthy fats for different the A's and the E's. And then we can talk about it. I was going to talk about supplements in a minute, but anytime you take a supplement, it's great to have it be food-based or like whole food-based as opposed to synthetic. And for things like you were saying, like the A and the E, those are especially important because the synthetic and a lot of times isolated vitamins are not helpful, right? We need them in symphony or in combination with our other, different kinds of minerals or catalysts or enzymes, the fiber, like you name it. Like, so taking vitamin A is so much different than eating a carrot. So, you just kind of want to look for, those foods or supplements that are whole foods based that are going to kind of give you like an array of the vitamins in their natural state or more natural state. Those are really helpful.
Now, inversely, what kind of influences, whether it be dietary or external, are actually bad for one's immune system? What puts pressure on the immune system?
Yeah, so things like refined sugars, refined carbohydrates, and again, really for anything, you name it, like chronic illness or whatever, like refined sugars, refined carbohydrates are usually, a negative. So things like our beverage.
Yeah.
What?
Ultra processed foods for the most
part. Exactly. So it's not that we can't have, and that again, like separating complex carbohydrates or all carbohydrates from refined carbohydrates is very important because like a sweet potato is a complex carbohydrate and that can actually be really beneficial, tons of nutrients, minerals, vitamins, whereas something like, breakfast cereal, crackers, pastries, muffins, those kinds of things are very detrimental. Additives, preservatives, chemicals, artificial dyes, artificial flavors, artificial sweeteners, any of those kinds of things, again, that you're going to find in those ultra processed foods are terrible for our immune system because anything, if you think about that's going to negatively impact the gut, which are all of those things, are negatively going to impact our immune system. And so, that kind of brings me to alcohol and medications. I'm not saying stop taking your medications, but when we think about things, especially like antibiotics, if you need to take them for an infection, absolutely, please do. But, make sure you're taking them like for a specific reason and not just like, oh, well, we want to rule things out or we're not really sure what's going on. So I'm going to hop on another round of antibiotics because that is just wiping out your microbiome, which in turn is really going to, lower your body's ability to mount an immune response.
So you basically advise against the use of prophylactic antibiotics?
Unless it's needed.
Yeah,
right?
No, I mean, as in precautionary, as instead.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think there's a bit more of an awareness now, but we really are still in a time where it's like, if we're not sure what's going on, it's like hop on antibiotics, and that's okay if it's bacteria, but if it's a virus, it's not going to help, and it's not neutral. You're damaging, like you're causing damage, wiping out the good guys and the bad guys. Because really, talk about not differentiating between good and bad, like yikes.
There are certain parts of the world and certain cultures where over-the-counter antibiotics are the norm. And indeed, the first line of defense when someone has anything from, a sore tooth to a sore back, people will start munching on antibiotics. And I'm always amazed that people have big tubs of antibiotics, all sorts of different things in their homes. And that's their first aid. I find that absolutely.
Yeah. And, when I was a kid, we used to get antibiotic shots. Like it was like a one shot. Yeah. And so then they switched. It's so funny because I've been discussing this with my mom back and forth. Like, why did they change? Because that seemed to be, I mean, you felt better in 24 to 48 hours, and it didn't hit your digestive tract like now the oral ones do.
Yeah.
And so I think it was, compliance issue, cost issue. I'm sure there's a bunch of things. Nobody likes shots, and people are more happy to take pills. But I think we had that detrimental effect on our microbiome that we didn't realize for years and years and years, and all this prescribing, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute, doing this damage. So, that's just, something to be aware of. And really even all medications, I'm not saying don't take your medications, but like those foods that we were talking about or supplements, immune support can just help kind of counter that if it's a medication you need to take for, a specific reason.
Outside of what we ingest, which is kind of outside of my usual purview, but do things like stress and lack of sleep have an impact upon one's immune system?
100%, 150%. So stress, sleep, and physical activity are kind of three non-food things that can have, I would say, like, different effect depending on if they're good or bad. But like physical activity is shown to, increase circulation, increase the, your immune response or the strength of your immune system, right? So should you need it, it's there. Stress has definitely been shown to suppress your immune response. And we kind of really, I think that came to light more during COVID because, who wasn't stressed out, right? And, our immune systems were just tanking. And, I don't think we really realized it, but it came to light, like as that was, shown to be a really big factor in like mortality rate and, things like that, severity of COVID. And then sleep as well, because sleep is where we do like a lot of our cleaning, a lot of our regeneration. And if we're not doing that and we're tired, our immune response just kind of like, it's like if you were working 24 hours, like how good would you be if you never, rested? And it's the same thing for our immune response. So it might, again, like, I think to your point, like what's causing those autoimmune conditions to be on the rise, no, sleep is terrible. I mean, it's definitely like, an epidemic, a sleep deficiency. And so it's like, that's probably adding to it as well.
Yep. Yeah, I hear you. And especially with devices and the like, keeping people awake.
Oh my gosh.
And stressing them out. Now, here's a question for you. In closing, this is almost like you marking your own homework, but how would you rate your own immune system out of 10?
I would rate it as an 8 or 9 because I do make sure that I take immune supporting, supplements or foods. I take the supplements if I don't feel like I got those, for the day. And I do, additional things like elderberry and echinacea and oregano, like, during the season, or if I feel like I've been exposed and things like that. So I do take care of it, but I can't say I always sleep really well. And I can't say I'm stress-free. But I take it very seriously. I hardly ever get sick. And I can say that because I used to get sick and I didn't really realize like we had anything, we could have an impact on that. It's like, oh, you go to school or it's at the office or it's just that time of year. Like I was saying, where it's like, oh, like here in America, we go from Halloween to Thanksgiving to Christmas or Hanukkah to New Year's Eve. I mean, it is just like boom, boom, boom. Plus with the weather turn in a lot of different parts of this country, I mean, it's really just setting us up for, a disaster. But there's so much we can do to impact our ongoing immune response so that, if something is going around the office, we don't have to get it. And if you think about it, that makes sense. Like if something's going around the office, there's always people that don't get it. Why? Why doesn't everybody get it? Because if the germ theory was correct, we'd all get sick every time we came into contact with somebody, with germs. So there's definitely like the terrain of our body that we can support and build, to better handle things when they do come our way.
Well, you've given me a lot to think about. this evening. If I were to rate my immune system, I'm pretty good with not catching bugs and the like, but then I don't see too many people. That's true. But
Taking yourself out of the mix there.
much. I mean, when we lived in Toronto, we, you know, you have a son, and you know what it's like sometimes with them coming back with things from school and all of that stuff. But I put myself up there about 8 out of 10, and I lose the 2 points because of the alcohol, right? Because that would but that would be my Achilles heel. That would be the waypoint, the entry point for any germs and things like that, I'm sure. Well, Jill, thank you so much once again for chatting with us today. We will look forward to catching up with you in December, and perhaps we can think of something seasonal to talk about. I'll see what I can come up with.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Excellent. Take care. We'll speak soon.
All right. Bye, Jamie.